I don't think there's ever been a female like head of the Defense Department, for example, or security advisor, that sort of thing. So areas where warfare is more central, I think, are still relegated to men, which is, unfortunate.
Just because a woman is in a political position, it doesn't mean she'll represent women's issues, and she shouldn't be voted in to represent women's issues. But the more there are women of all status at the decision-making table, the more we've got a better chance to respond to the concerns of women.
Overall, there are more and more women in leadership positions in security and defence, and it's less and less written about. And I think that's important, the fact that it's just not newsworthy anymore, and it shouldn't be newsworthy.
We looked specifically at the issue of women in the armed forces, where we had representatives from the British Armed Forces talking about their experiences. One of the people, it was a British female combat rescue pilot, who was actually very highly decorated as a consequence of actions she performed in Afghanistan. I don't suppose anybody she pulled out cared in the slightest about the gender of the pilot that was rescuing them.
I think men are critical, and I see men as our allies in our struggle to achieve equal rights and opportunities for all. I think their voice and their engagement is absolutely necessary for us to be able to succeed.
I think you can't change issues like gender-based violence unless you engage men and boys. In many circumstances, men and boys are perpetrators. I think there's also a role to be played by men and boys as agents of change, in the same way there's a role for women to be playing as agents of change.
Gender is still considered a separate item on the list, whereas I think everybody should be aware when you go into operations, when you plan for operations, that gender perspective is taken, but not just by women that are gender advisors, but by the average military.
Let's get away from, let's address gender issues once everything else is being solved. Because that's very often the answer. That was the answer in the Arab Spring, but we hear that regularly. Let's address gender issues from the very beginning.
If you actually look at the resolutions, if they were implemented as they were meant to be, we would make substantial progress in women at the table, in combating violence, in addressing crimes of violence, in improving access to justice.
I think we would have lasting peace. I strongly believe if we would really have a strengthened role of women in the peace negotiations, but also in post-conflict settings, that we could definitely reach something which is more lasting than it is now.
The fundamental goal behind all those resolutions and all those grand words is to produce a fairer society. And that would, of course, mean we have a much better world.